All right. Hey, everyone. Welcome to today's mini class. My name is Killian, and I'm going to be your presenter today. And today is going to be the second mini class of our Power User series, where we cover advanced topics and workflows. And this series is meant to be the logical successor to our New Year, New User series, and it's going to build off many of the topics that were discussed in that series. This class in particular will be part one of insurance estimating and will mostly focus on the setup of insurance estimating, whereas part two next week will focus more on the usage and the troubleshooting for insurance estimating. All right, so to begin, let's first discuss what exactly insurance estimating is. So, insurance estimating is a tool in MacPractice that provides an estimated amount an insurance company might pay towards a charge based on the patient's insurance plan. So, with insurance estimating, when you go to enter a charge on a patient's ledger, it is going to show an estimated patient and insurance portion. Without insurance estimating enabled in MacPractice, the entire amount of a procedure will be added to the insurance portion once a claim is created, and the remaining balance will only be moved to the patient portion after the claim has been paid or closed. So if your office does not currently use insurance estimating, then this class is going to be a really great introduction into how to set up insurance estimating, and it'll just give you a really good overview of it. But if your office already has insurance estimating configured, then this can be a really nice refresher and also a great opportunity to better understand how this tool works for your office if you yourself or other staff members had not been around during the setup or the configuration of the insurance estimating. So before we get in the steps of actually setting it up, I do want to point out that it is very important to keep in mind that insurance estimating can only be as accurate as the information entered within MacPractice. So it's essential to make sure all information entered during the setup is both adequate and accurate. So when setting up insurance estimating, the first thing you're going to want to do is to create and set up your procedure types. So that can be done here in the references ability. And then in the sidebar here, there is the procedure types reference folder. So I'll go ahead and expand it. I do have quite a few existing ones. If you want to create a new procedure type, you can simply click on the green plus button up here. It'll create a new blank record that will allow you to then fill out the information here. And there isn't too much to fill up on the types here because this is simply just the reference. Um, so first is going to obviously be the name of the procedure type. And another thing I will point out, if you are a dental office and you have MacPractice DDS, which is the version of MacPractice that I am using, there will be a couple additional checkboxes below in the area underneath the description, and you will need to select whether a procedure type will be dental or orthodontic. And that'll come into play later when we enter our insurance plans and configure those properly. And the description again is basically just the name of the procedure type. And usually the majority of insurance companies are going to follow the same procedure types, such as like diagnostic, restorative, preventive, labs, radiography, and so on and so forth. So this is pretty simple here. Once you enter in the name of your procedure type, and if you are a DDS office, if you set it to dental or orthodontic, you simply press the command S on your keyboard to save, and that will then save that procedure type record. Second, after you have your procedure types entered into MacPractice, you will then want to assign a procedure type to every procedure code in your fee schedule or your fee schedules, which will also be located in the references ability under the fee schedules reference folder here. So you will expand your fee schedules reference folder, find whichever fee schedule you're wanting to work with here, and then you will select the specific fees in this like secondary sidebar here. And then once you select your fees, you can go in here and then set the specific procedure type for that. Obviously, this would be very time consuming to do individually and manually for every single um, code within a fee schedule. So thankfully, we do have options to do this in bulk. Um, Oftentimes, they codes will be within a range when determining what procedure type they will fall under. We do have that on our help desk. We have an article that does cover that. But there is a way to do this in bulk, and it is a way to do it based on a range of procedure types. So unfortunately, I do not have a server build of MacPractice installed on this computer. This is a client, but if you are on the server computer, there is a database utility that you can run to update these in bulk. So that would be under the manager's ability on the server computer. You would then have a option over here for database utilities. You would then select that, and then you would look up and search the database utility update procedure type by code. And what that will have there is it will give you an option to choose which fee schedule that you are wanting to update these codes for. And then it will allow you to select a range of codes and then allow you to select what procedure type you are updating those codes to. As with all database utilities, though, I do recommend a recent backup is ran beforehand, and everyone should be logged out of MacPractice while that database utility is being ran. And just to speak a bit more on the database utilities, I like to make sure that offices are aware of this little trick, or just a tip, I should say, is that I recommend running these in the morning, usually just a few minutes prior to the office opening. This way you can ensure that no other employees are using MacPractice, so they're not logged into MacPractice. Plus, if you run automatic backups every night, the backup ran the night before is totally sufficient. So you can opt out of the backup prompt that comes up when you attempt to run the utility. So you don't have to run another backup and wait for that to fully complete before you then update your procedure types. So once you have your procedure types created and you have assigned your procedure types to your specific codes, the next step is going to be actually creating the insurance plans and configuring those to the proper ways. And that's going to be comprising the bulk of the setup for insurance estimating. So again, we'll be going back to our references ability. And then we will be going to the insurance company's reference folder. And we'll just work with an existing one. We will just work with Aetna here. So first, I will go through these main tabs up above. The first one here is going to be the company info tab. And this tab isn't super important to fill out simply because when we go under the plans tab, which will be where we'll spend most of the time speaking about, but the plans tab will have its own sub tab for demographics, and anything that is entered within that sub tab is going to overwrite any information shown here in the overall insurance company info demographics. So a lot of offices will leave this blank just to keep it simple. But if you do need to fill that out for whatever reason, of course you can. And then you do have the claims tab here where you can basically just set up your basically like your claims preferences for the specific insurance company. You can come in here and set your specific code system. You also have the option to set your e-claims template. If you use those, you can come in here and you can also set your default paper claim for this insurance company. You also do have the option here to set the insurance type to medical or dental, and then also you can come in here and set the specific plan type. And then there are a few checkboxes here. The main one that I will talk about will be this carrier always pays provider. So basically what this is when you have this checkbox checked and you have it enabled, it is going to allow the balances of a charge submitted to stay in insurance portion until a claim is closed. Next, we have the provider IDs tab, and this one is pretty important. I will mention that this can be overridden because there is a similar tab within the plans tab here. There will be a sub tab that will go over a lot of this information as well. And this is going to be pretty straightforward. You know, you have your providers listed here, and you can put in your paper IDs, your e-claim IDs, stuff like that. But then I will mention that there are the participate and provider accepts assignment checkboxes, and then also the bill is individual. Participate and provider accepts assignment are similar in some ways, but they do differ quite a bit. So first, participating, this is going to be for doctors who are in networks with that specific insurance company. So if you are in network, you will then click participate. Accept assignment. This will show that you are not in network, but you do accept an insurance company's allowed amount, that you do adhere to whatever allowed amount that they are bringing forward and setting for a specific charge. So if you do accept assignment, you would check it. Same thing with participate. So for the purposes of this, I'm going to work with an existing insurance plan that I have here. But if you do want to create a new plan, you can simply click on the plus button here and it will create a new line item. And you can come in here and you can edit the name of this plan and you can, set that to whatever it needs to be. Usually there will be a specific plan name or it will be in reference to the employer. But as you can see here, under this plans tab, once we have that selected, we do have these sub tabs below that that pertain to the specific insurance plan that we have selected over here. So first, let's go through the coverage tab. So first thing that we're going to have here is going to be our annual coverage, and this is where you're going to enter the amount of coverage the plan provides the patient. If the patient does not have a set amount of annual coverage, or if that annual coverage is unknown, what we generally recommend is to enter an amount here that would be greater than the amount of a year's worth of procedures, just so that way we can ensure that when we are doing that estimating, it will estimate properly and it's not saying that there is zero coverage when we do run out of this proposed coverage amount. If you are a dental office and you have MacPractice DDS, you will have this field here for a maximum ortho benefit. And this is going to be separate from the annual coverage amount, where any codes that are of an orthodontic procedure type will then pull and derive from this amount that is set in here. Down here, you're going to have your annual deductible that you'll enter in there. And of course, that means the patient will be responsible for all charges until this deductible amount is met, and that is when that insurance coverage will kick in. And then down below, you do have the start date and the expire date for this specific plan. You can enter this in here and it will set it moving forward for any time you add this to a patient account. When you put this insurance plan onto their account, it will default and show this as the start date. However, if this happens to differ for whatever reason, you can always edit that manually in the patient account, and it won't affect the record in here, but it will just affect that specific patient. So you can edit that on a case by case basis. Over here, you have the renewal date, and this is going to be when that annual coverage refreshes. You can set a default date in here so that when you add it, this will be what pulls in. But you also do have the option here to update all patients. So this will basically work retroactively and will update any patients in the database that have the specific insurance plan, and it will update their renewal date to the date that is entered. You also do have the options here to select your specific plan type. And also here you can select basically what this deductible applies to. So this is saying before insurance coverage kicks in, how many people on the account need to meet this deductible amount. So you may have family onto one account, but maybe two people on that account need to meet the deductible before that coverage kicks in. So you would set that here to whatever amount of people it would need to be. And we did get a quick question. You can totally leave the expiration date empty. It was asked whether that can be done or not. You can totally leave this cleared out and empty. You can also leave the start date empty. This is just put in here as basically like a default record, essentially. And I did get another question here regarding this update all patients button. This can be done on any computer. This isn't specific to the server or anything. This can be done on a server or a client computer. This option will be available on there. Below here, we have basically the bread and butter of the insurance estimating, and that is going to be where we set our coverages. So below, you're going to have every procedure type in your database listed below. And then this middle column here is going to be a covered and a not covered ratio that is based on the percentage. So here, for example, I have the anesthesia procedure type. So what this is saying is that any patient that has this specific insurance plan, if I were to have entered a charge that is of the anesthesia procedure type, they will get an estimated coverage of 30%, and then 70% will remain uncovered and will either go into patient portion or will be written off. And then you also do have the option here to apply procedures within this type to the deductible, whether that needs to be applied or not here. And you can come in here and easily edit this if you just click in here, and it should adjust the ratio number here so that it does reach a full 100%. So if I put this in here and if I go, 20%, it will then switch it to 80 for me for the uncovered. Next, moving on to the demographic tab here. Again, this is going to override any information shown in the company info tab. So I would recommend having this filled out for sure if you do not have the company info tab filled out, because this will be pertaining to the specific insurance plan, because each insurance plan might have different contact information. Maybe they have, a different mailing address, or they have a different phone number that you need to contact. That's all stuff that you could put in here under this specific tab. Next, we have the Participate tab, which is going to be similar to the Provider's ID tab up here. And this is simply going to be where you can acknowledge if your provider participates in that specific plan. And one thing I will point out, I will backtrack just a bit to the Coverage tab. So this Participate checkbox here is a little bit confusing because there are three different ways that this checkbox can be represented. First, obviously, if it is unchecked completely, it is going to indicate that no one participates in the specific plan. If there is a check icon, specifically a check icon in that Participate checkbox, that means that all of my providers participate in the specific plan. However, I have it right here where there's only a dash mark, and this dash mark indicates that there is a varying level of participation among my providers. So this means that there are some providers that participate and some that do not, whether that's one that does or doesn't, it doesn't matter. That will show as a dash if there are varying levels of participation. And then you do have another freehand notes section here where you can put in some more additional information that doesn't maybe fit a specific field or a checkbox. And this can be pertaining to the specific insurance plan. Really, any information that would be relevant could be entered here. And then lastly, you do have the Procedures tab. And this is going to be where you will set the allowed amounts for these procedures, basically what the insurance is saying this allowed amount will be, what the flat rate is, the copay, and then any work RVU as well. And there are a few different ways in which you can add these procedures onto this specific table. The first way is going to be the most time consuming way, and that is going to be simply clicking the plus button here and adding a single blank line item where then you can add the procedure code and then enter all the information as needed. Obviously, if we were to do that for every single code in a fee schedule, that would take way too long to do. So we do have a couple other options and a couple other methods in which to add codes to this in a much quicker manner. The first one here is going to be the add from fee schedule button. So if I click this, this is going to allow me to pull forward all of my fees from a specific fee schedule as it pertains. So if I wanted to, I could select my medical fees. And once I hit OK, it's going to pull in all of my medical fees here. I also do have another option for how I would like to bring in codes. I usually what I will say is the most difficult part with setting up insurance estimating is setting up that first plan and getting those first allowed amounts in. In my experience looking at plans, oftentimes the majority of codes will have the same allowed amounts across plans, but there will just be some slight differences that make up those plans. So obviously the majority of them will remain the same. We only want to update a few. So what we can do is we can choose to update the procedures and we can choose to copy what we have here to another plan, or we can choose to bring forward from another plan that specific insurance plan's procedure codes and allowed amounts and whatnot. So you also do have the option here to delete all of them and basically just clear all this out if need be. But what you can do here is you can copy from another plan, and then you can actually select an insurance plan, not just from another plan under this carrier, but from any insurance carrier. So if you do have one that's very similar, you can just select it, pull it from here, select it here, hit OK, and it's going to pull forward all of that information in here, and then you can make your slight edits as needed. And that will save you a lot more time, and it won't be nearly as time consuming as putting all of these in there manually for the first time. And that's pretty much going to cover how to actually set up insurance estimating. And again, if you are not using insurance estimating currently in your office, this is a great way to just have an introduction into how it's set up. But again, if you have been using insurance estimating in your office for a while, this is a great way to understand exactly how it is set up, because that will play a lot into our next class, which is talking about troubleshooting and the usage of insurance estimating. Because once you have the understanding of the setup, you can then go back and refer to that and kind of look for any issues if you do see some discrepancies in that estimating, or some things aren't coming quite exactly how you expected them to. But the last part to doing the setup here would obviously be to give that patient the insurance plan. So we will navigate over to the patient's ability here. And the easiest way to do this is to go over to the primary tab, or whichever tab it is for the guarantor. In this case, my patient is their own primary guarantor. And then you come down here to this insurance field and you can click the plus button and you will get a drop down menu here that allows you to select the insurance carrier and then furthermore select a plan if you would like. If you do not see the specific carrier or even the plan, you actually do have the option to come up here and click the plus button, and you can add an entirely new insurance carrier and fill in their information below. This drop down menu is essentially like a snapshot into that insurance company reference. All of that same information will be shown here. It'll just be displayed in a little bit of a different way. But if you want to make any edits beyond just simply selecting the insurance carrier from here, you will want to you will want to click on this lock icon below, and it will just want to confirm that you are wanting to edit this company's record. You will go ahead and confirm and say unlock. And then you can come in here and this will not be grayed out anymore and you'll be allowed to navigate within it. Then you can come into here, go to your plans, and you can go ahead and select your specific plan name here. And again, if you happen to notice anything that is wrong here, or if you need to make any edits, you can do that on the fly here as well if need be. So once you have your plan selected and everything looks good to go, you'll go ahead and hit select, and that will then pull into here for this patient. And as you can see here, it did pull in the start date for me. I did have that end date blank, so it did not pull in an end date, and it did pull in the renewal date that I did have set. The plan is already set, but if you had maybe set it for the incorrect plan, or if you even notice in the future that it's on the wrong plan, you can always come in here, just select this, and then select the correct plan that it needs to be set for that patient. And then lastly, you do have the option here to tie this to an employer if it is something in relation to their employer. All right, and that is going to wrap up part one of insurance estimating, just mainly covering the setup